Hi, I'm John Green, and this is Crash Course World History, and today we're going to be talking about one of the most horrific atrocities committed in the 20th century. Oh, Mr. Green, don't you mean the creation of poop jokes? Know me from the past. It's so difficult to isolate what I hate about you because there's so much to hate. I'm talking about a massacre committed by a failing Ottoman Empire to vent hate, blame, and anger from the populace that was once centered on the government onto an already disliked local ethnic group, very similar to what can be seen in the Middle East with Kurds today. Don't get comfy, because today we're talking about the Armenian Genocide. In Armenia and the Ottoman Empire, the shift and gradual decline of the Ottomans in the 19th and 20th century created movement and groups dedicated to restoring the empire to its former glory. These nationalists became obsessed with a Turkey for the Turks and sought to eliminate the Christian Armenians. When Turkification, or the converting and forced assimilation of a group into something seemingly more Turkish, didn't work fast enough, the newly established Young Turk government decided to put an end to the Armenian question, and really, the Armenians, for that matter. I know you're probably thinking, "Boy there, Mr. Green, what's this Young Turk Armenian question business?" Well, to put it in layman's terms, the Young Turks were a political movement that emerged in response to declining Ottoman power. Created during the rule of Sultan Abdülhamid II. Wait, Stan, it's the second, not two? Fine, Abdülhamid II. Happy. Anyway, military officers and other reformers met in secret to plan and eventually take the Ottoman Empire from the Sultan control. They are the culprits behind the genocide and are to blame for the death of nearly 1.5 million Armenians. Moving on to the Armenian question, it was to represent many things that were wrong with World War I and the genocide. The involvement of European powers in the Ottoman Empire, and the Armenian demand for a guarantee of protection of their lives and property. The Ottomans refused to answer the question, and it's come to symbolize a struggle between the Ottomans and the Armenians. One, a crumbling empire grasping for straws, and another, a small state, alienated in all directions, crying but its voice unheard. Now that we know all the big players, let's go a bit into detail. Let's go to the thought bubble. Our story begins with the Ottomans and their fall from prominence. From the 16th century onwards, the Ottomans began to decline, to the point where by 1914, they lost nearly all their territory in Africa and Europe. This decline created huge tension in the people living in the empire, which intensified ethnic conflict. The Armenians, who asked the Armenian question, argued for representation and participation in the government, but that ended up raising suspicion and discontent with the Turks, as the Turkish have never shared power with any minority, Christian or not. The then recent secession of the Balkans only furthered this hate. The Ottomans, in trying to never allow a non-Turk to contribute to the government, avoided the Armenian question. Under Sultan Abdülhamid II, massacres were committed to dampen the Armenian spirit. And in 1908, to avert the ongoing political crisis, the Young Turks came to power. The Committee of Union and Progress, or CUP, came to lead the new government in 1913. And created an ultra-nationalistic belief system, which wished for a clean, Turkish-only state. Things only ramped up when World War I began. As the Ottomans fought the Allies, they also ravaged the Armenian lands. From the time period preceding 1915, soldiers would decimate Armenian properties, pillaging, maiming, and killing any Armenian they saw. In 1915, the genocide went into full gear. Thousands of Armenians were forced out of their homes and into the Syrian desert, where they marched in the blistering heat until they died from exhaustion. Mass killings followed these death marches as hired killers, mostly convicts called Tashkilati Masusa, were created to slaughter the men, women, and children as they traveled. Worse is how none of the deported people were fed, and many died from starvation. The death toll was approximately 1.5 million out of the 2 million Armenians in the empire. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Following the conclusion of World War I and the subsequent defeat of the Central Powers, lead members of the CUP resigned and fled to countries like Germany. The persecution of war crime in the 1919 to 1920 Turkish court-martial deemed Ottoman actions as neither an accident nor an aberration. Although they recognized the deed, the court hardly did anything to reprimand the Ottoman for their actions. The mass murders committed by the Ottomans forever shaped the landscape of the Middle East, much like, you guessed it, the Mongols. Despite all of the hard evidence, some still do not recognize the Armenian massacres as a genocide. The Turkish state still denies the genocide, and its denial is why Turkish and Armenian relations are still tense today. All in all, the Armenian Genocide was a multi-stage extermination of the Armenian population to direct and channel hate in an ultra-nationalistic state fighting a losing war. This extermination ended up molding the diplomatic and political boundaries of the modern day and the future. Next week, we're going to raid the beachfront of Normandy in World War II, and I'll see you then. Crash Course is produced and directed by Dae Yang-o. Our script supervisor is Dae Yang-o. This show is written by my high school classmates, Dae Yang-o, Roxanne Carlos, and myself. Our graphics team is Ethan French and Roxanne Carlos. Last week's phrase was DAC. If you have any questions about today's video, ask us and we'll answer as best as we can. Thanks for watching, and as we say in my hometown, don't forget to be awesome.